Hello, everyone. In this session, we will review how to perform a cause and effect analysis, looking in particular at the Ishikawa fishbone diagram. The learning objectives for this session are to understand the objective of a cause and effect analysis in the context of the analyze phase in Six Sigma. We want to be able to list the major categories of causes used in a cause and effect analysis, and using brainstorming, be able to create a C&E diagram, also known as the fishbone diagram, which will then help to aid communication and to aid further investigation of the causes. And at the end of this lecture, we added a slide briefly about brainstorming. In the DMAIC process improvement cycle, the analyze phase brings together all the information collected in define and measure, including the overall project goal, information from the process mapping, measured data, the baseline status at the moment, and we then use this information to start the very interesting analyze part of the cycle. And this is where I worked for many years in quality, reliability, and technology transfer. In the analyze step, the cause and effect, or C&E diagram, is the first level of dissecting the process to discover the root causes. The C&E diagram is also known as Ishikawa's fishbone diagram, as it's named after the Japanese professor Kaoru Ishikawa, who first used it to investigate the causes of quality problems. And this is a method then that helps a team think together on paper, helps them get things down on post-it notes, on flip charts, helps them start to discuss, start to discover connections or things they haven't thought of before. The method consists of systematically identifying all the sources that might contribute to the undesirable symptoms under investigation. And it's generally done in a brainstorming session among a team of people who are knowledgeable in the problem area. The C&E diagram not only helps in the investigation of the causes, but also serves as a means of recording the entire problem-solving process that the team is using. So to follow a uniform format, the causes should be investigated and recorded under several major categories. And these are shown then as major stems in the diagram. And we have them at machine, material, measurement, methods, manpower, and environment. So for example, the machine, this means the equipment that you're using, computers that may be using, anything that's required for this particular process. Materials then consist of raw materials, materials that might be used for the equipment at that process step. Measurements are data generated from the process that are used to evaluate its quality at that point. Methods and procedures are how the process steps are performed. What is the set of operating procedures, the standard operating procedure, SOP, that is then documented and used. By manpower, what we're talking about then is the human factor, operators, anyone involved in that process. The environment, here we're talking not only about the environment, but also the organizational structure, the logistics, the conditions. And often you see, for example, management included in this list. Management, policies, higher level decision rules, things that are maybe a little bit outside of the control of the process, but that definitely affect the process. And here we see, except for the management, we see the fishbone diagram. So here you can imagine we have, I can't draw very well, but a fish here at the top of our fishbone diagram, and each of these major stems, that's what we just talked about: machine, material, manpower, methods, measurement, environment, and you can add management to that too. So it's the C&E diagram here. It's a communication tool. And what you do then is you put in here causes. What could be possible causes due to the machine that could result in our undesirable income? What could be causes due to the material, etc., etc.? Could there be something with the operators, with the shifts? Could there be something with the environment? Do we have a temperature issue that could cause this undesirable symptom? This could cause this process problem. Don't forget, in the output of the process. What about the measurements, the methods? Could the measurements be in error? And then what you also see is, in the diagram, you see secondary causes. So the diagram, although it's ordered and systematic, you have a lot of room in this type of diagram, and you can have people adding little post-it notes to your diagram. You can do this in several different ways. It's a very physical result of this brainstorming session. So now, there's situations when you can't strictly follow this format. For example, when you're investigating a problem related to a service, then maybe you'd have to modify this format slightly. But in general, you want to try and keep the main structure similar. And we have a case study here to show you how this worked. This is from our textbook. We had a problem here relating to the failure of bonds after curing, investigated by a team of students in a harness assembly shop. And the bonding in this case was taking place between rubber and plastic surfaces with a bonding material, some kind of glue applied in between. Then there was pressure applied, and then the bonded surfaces were then cured in a temperature and humidity controlled chamber so that they would become very good, and the bond would be then considered a failure when it did not meet the strength requirement. So the team sat together, talked to all the people involved in the process, looked at the process, and here's the example of their fishbone diagram. Now, maybe here we don't need to go through everything, but you can see, for example, for the machines, could it be the setting on the oven was incorrect? Could it be that the maintenance was not done regularly enough? For the materials, you had these two surfaces. Could it be that the surface was very smooth, or was it was not degreased, or could there be some problem with the material that was causing a problem with the curing? Could the manpower, could there be lack of training, inadequate supervision? Was the baking method improper? Was the sanding method improper? Environment, was the temperature wrong? Was there humidity wrong? So all of these resulting then in a bond failure. So you can see how creative this can be, and it doesn't have to be perfect, but you get all the ideas into the diagram. Now, after creating the C&E diagram, the team then would vote to select the most important causes. So normally you try and vote to pick 3 or 4 causes that need to be investigated further through experimentation and analysis. And so the way this works is, suppose you have the 4 top ranking causes. So everybody would then pick the causes, and they would rank them like the number 1 cause, number 2 cause, number 3 cause, and number 4 cause. And so for each cause, then for all the different causes, but then this is the ranking, and then you total the ranks. From all team members, and the lowest, not the 0 rank, but the lowest rank total gets the priority. So obviously the ones that are ranking the number 1, that's the low number. So everyone who ranked the cause that was ranked most number 1 would then have the smallest total, and so it will be then given the highest priority. The second highest number then, or the second lowest number then, would get the second priority. And then the causes that you've ranked at the top for the highest priority would then be studied in further details to discover solutions and implement remedies. So again, the C&E diagram then not only helps in the investigation of the process, but serves as a means of recording the problem-solving process, and then at the end of it, you have to then use your diagram to decide where you're going to go next. Just a couple words on brainstorming. Brainstorming means using the brains of members of a team, discussing with them, working with them in a very free way to find a list of all the causes that contribute to a problem on hand and possible ways of solving it. And generally, there's a certain set of conventions usually adopted in these sessions to maximize the amounts of information generated. You generally have a facilitator, someone who's not part of the team. They help in the sessions, acting as a moderator, making sure that everyone has a chance to talk, not having any real bias as for one problem cause or problem solution. And all the ideas are recorded. No idea should be rejected, at least at the initial stage of the idea generation. And the facilitator will then go around the table, making sure everyone has a chance to discuss. And at the end of the brainstorming session, you then have the ideas pruned. So they're reviewed based on consensus so that you end up avoiding any really unfeasible solutions. And then you have a resulting diagram, which will be presented to the team for voting to choose then the top candidates for further investigation.